about the systems. How do we look at the systems, not the particular election? Because so things were on the table. And Honorable Semuju's side kind of, betrayed the process and chickened out. I left you to talk. We even got a mediator from Sweden, a former Minister of Development, that was trusted by both President Museveni and Dr. Chiza Besigye. She came here for weeks, came up with a document, and both leaders were supposed to sign it in public.
Who chickened out? Then,
on the last minute, Dr. Chiza Besigye said, no, we can actually sign it. We don't need to meet. And I think Semuju advised him. No, but the mediator, you see, with these processes have owner. So once you trust somebody with mediation, they are in charge of the process. You as a party, she wanted that meeting. And she's still alive. She wanted that meeting and she was disappointed because the idea was that we can build on these two main political parties with kind of basic agreement, and then we have a national dialogue.
Honorable Ambassador, you deny that you're not central in the behind-the-scenes talks.
I was central in the past.
No, but now,
No. Now I'm just an inquisitive citizen, like all of us. Very inquisitive.
Yeah, but have you heard from your fly on the wall about what's happening? About especially that issues that have been fronted include release of prisoners, a return of Bobby, peaceful return, and also iPod. The issue of getting Noop into iPod.
No, I've seen them in the papers. These days, I'm not as good running sources like I used to be when I was a journalist. I just read newspapers and listen. But on the surface, those will not be bad. On the surface, will not be bad starting points. So you have to start from somewhere. We will have to grow. Trust does not fall from heaven. It's built. And you start from, look at the history of negotiations. I participated in the Burundi negotiations for 11 years, where you had political parties where the president of the party and the wife was the treasurer and the driver was the secretary general. Those were the political parties we dealt with. Mandela got tired of them. Nyerere died. Mandela got tired of them. Jacob Zuma saw an agreement and ended the war. But trust was built, and these were ethnic kind of conflicts. I think we stand a chance by talking, not being dismissive. Museveni has no history of trust.
Yeah, but you've already had the skepticism of the principle.
Yeah, but that is lack of. I think we need to. These are our leaders. These are leaders seated here. You need to get. Look at Kenya, which you're talking about. Look at the late Raila Odinga. Having lost many elections, but after every election, he would reach out to the other side. Not that he trusted them, but the country reached a stage where he was the statesman. So we need to kind of have statesmen on the side of the opposition that will say, look here, we don't trust this person, but we can reach out and have this. And I think we should give the chance to the Interreligious Council. I think we need to talk to them. Everybody believes in these people. And they have a plan that is really credible. And if they can really begin somewhere and bring all the parties together, and look at iPod, you know it better than me. It's work in progress, but at least parties meet there. And I think your party had got out. Now it can come back. I was reading somewhere. So if there is iPod where all the political parties, leaders meet, that's also progress.
Thank you. The issue of getting National Unity Platform admitted into it be managed.
You see, at the beginning of the iPod, people thought that what happened in Ghana you can import. But I think that's where the Situation Room and others played a part, culminating into the writing of a new constitution with 2 terms of 4 years each. J. Rawlings standing for 2 terms and he doesn't change the constitution, and he goes, he brings his vice president, is defeated. And since then, Ghana has been changing leaders and has remained stable. Because once the country doesn't change leaders, even attracting investment is going to be very difficult because of the uncertainty. You will have only a few fortune hunters. I used to have a discussion with some government ministers, and I said, you see, if someone has $100 million hard earned, he will want to invest it in a stable country where leaders change, but stability remains. So Ghana, having gone through the J. Rawlings turmoil and was able to overcome it, it was as a result of those visits to Ghana by FDC and other parties that led to the birth of iPod here. The initial discussion in iPod, and everybody was attending. In fact, it was NRM that was not attending iPod. I think in the 9th Parliament, the parties in iPod even came up with the proposed legal reforms. They brought bills in Parliament that were received by late Jacob Oulanyah as the Deputy Speaker. Mm-hmm. Later on, Mbaba dismissed the iPod as an NGO. And iPod, I think, at that point started collapsing. When we were in FDC, we were in and out many times because iPod had lost purpose. Museveni seeks to resurrect iPod.
Today it is a statutory.
Because of the calls for dialogue. He said, but there is dialogue in the National Forum, this one of the Electoral Commission under the Political Parties and Organizations Act. There is also iPod. These people from outside, you religious leaders, there is mechanism for dialogue. You stop calling for a dialogue. We will dialogue through these entities. And then he said, at one time he says, okay, if you don't agree with me now, you will not. Because all the discussions in iPod moved now from the issues to money. Increase money, and he said, how much are we getting? We can increase the money quickly from initially 10 billion to 35. Said you can even increase, even the areas can come. Then they take photos and leave. Said, but you, National Unity Platform, you are bad-mannered. These ones don't give them money. Then you quickly run to Parliament and change the law. Now, it's okay. If you want to be admitted, first you must accept that when Museveni comes to call, you will attend, and then you will salute him. Then you are a member of IPOD. These are now the new conditions.
They are in the law.
They are not in the law. What is in the law is that you must be attending.
Yes, you must be attending.
That is in the law.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But in practice, because I remember National Unity Platform wrote that, okay, now we are ready to come. They said, you wait, don't come. Even after them writing, they said, don't come. So where we are...
Is it a trap now?
No, because you see, the whole discussion in the country had shifted from the objective for which iPod was formed to now earning some money to grow parties through iPod. I suspect even Muiz, they didn't want to go there, but they wanted to pick their money because the money is public to continue growing their party. And I don't blame them, because this was taxpayers' money whose purpose was to build the parties. But Museveni was holding on to it. He said, okay, for you to receive it, you must come to my meetings. The point that Adonia was making here, when the Swedish minister came here, she went back to what Museveni was demanding. That you come, you Museveni and Besige, you come, we take photos and you sign. And we said, no. We can sign, we don't need to have a physical meeting. You send the document, we sign, and Museveni signs, and we announce you have agreed on the following. In fact, in Ghana and partly in Kenya, they even enacted laws to guarantee the outcome of those discussions. I think in Ghana they started with the law. That what we are going through now is guaranteed by the law, passed by Parliament, that it will be implemented. We proposed all those, but I'm saying, no, we can meet with Besige. The issue was meeting with Besige. No. Take photos, and his dialogue has ended. And we said, no, we are not going to have this dialogue of photos with Museveni. It must be your dialogue. So the question he asked, the direct answer is that iPod now is a tool for controlling political parties.
Not growing.
It is now a tool for control. If Museveni invites you and you refuse, then he says, don't give them this money of iPod. If they want the money, they will come back. So when you come back and there are photos, I think he will have achieved his dialogue.
Well,
because I kept asking those who were going there. We boycotted the meetings when we were in FDC in Munyonyo. And they were insulting us. I said, okay, you tell us, outline 1, 2, 3 things that you have agreed, for which you will say, you guys, you have missed. Now tell me, since Museveni came in and there are photos and there were, just tell me 3 things that they have agreed that are of importance to the country.
Thank you. Honorable Sabiti, how much do you trust the role and the enthusiasm of religious leaders and the iPod to steer the country into national dialogue?
Well, those are institutions which are generally acceptable.
We can only settle for that.
But before we agree on those, we should first look at other. There could be others who could be added. But at the moment, Interreligious Council is generally accepted.
Has the country become too desperate that you can settle for anything?
But these are our leaders, they are not anything. Kagwa, these are our religious leaders.
I agree, but I thought issues to do with resolving political stalemates would rather be resolved first and foremost by the politicians themselves.
But there is a trust deficit, like Council was saying. So that religious leaders can fill that gap and bring them together.
Okay, then, what would be done to resolve the trust deficit?
Even the religious leaders, when they went to meet Museveni, they have now changed. The Catholics and Protestants have different leaders. You are shouting over dialogue. For you, Mubaji, when Muslims were quarreling with you over property, do you have a dialogue? Started dismissing one after another. And eventually...
Where do you get those stories? Where do you get these stories?
Let's take a very short break and we'll be back. Stay tuned.
NBS Frontline.
Yes, it's still the frontline as we analyze the current state of affairs, asking whether dialogue can resolve the apparent deadlock in the aftermath of the January elections. But, well, Council Muizi, President Museveni is just a few weeks away to swearing in. Come May, he will be sworn in for another term. Between now and then, is NUP having any strategy to show they're still relevant and they're still a force to reckon with?
We are a leading political party in Uganda. That in itself makes us relevant and hard to ignore, especially that we command the majority in Uganda, the majority being young people, and the most aggrieved, the most volatile, and the future, if you are to discuss about the Uganda we want.
Yeah, but look,
so it would
you're in such a situation where you've not even sat down to audit the outcome of the election.
Auditing is a process, Njala. It is a process. It's not a one-off. I told you for certain that on my desk I have 20 election petitions. You will not find any evidence in 1-2 days in auditing an election process. This is part of the larger. I told you the reports that we have pre-nomination, nomination, election period, and post-election. That is part of the audit. you cannot get an answer or response on this from the NRM. Thus, the current talk for dialogue. That's why we are saying dialogue you cannot speak to dialogue without having to answer to a few of these challenges.
Can you speak of dialogue when you are in disarray internally? The principle is away.
We can speak of dialogue when the state stops abducting our people. We can speak about dialogue when the ruling party recognizes that the National Unity Platform is a registered political party that can do activities within the law. We can speak to dialogue when the NRM is not using institutions like courts to get electoral victories even where they did not. We can speak to dialogue when our people are not being picked and taken to torture chambers or safe houses, just like John Mary was. It is on record. John Mary Sebufu, among others. We still have political prisoners of the last election, 2021. And our challenge is not about actually speaking to Museveni alone. Our challenge is the institutions that are being used by President Museveni and his government. We have a problem with the judiciary, which has been captured. A judiciary which has what we call cadre judges. We have parliament. I don't know what is left of parliament. So the issue of dialogue should be about institutions. Can we have better governance?
Yeah,
it's a governance issue. So if I'm to dialogue with Museveni, for example...
If someone is making an overture to you and you react with hubris and say, I cannot.
We are not saying we cannot. No one can say dialogue is bad. For stability, where we are, for there to be stability in Uganda, you cannot underscore the importance of dialogue. But the process and structure has to be discussed. Where do you start? You're talking of religious leaders. It's not true that the Inter-Religious Council is respected by politicians across board.
There's no respect.
I've told you the last attempt, you recall, you're a journalist, was when elders were picked by the late Dr. Paul Kanga Semoge. A similar structure. There were religious leaders in this team, in the unity and diversity process, political parties across board, and they had signed to a memorandum. So there is a little bit of respect left with some leaders, like the Jacks. Where are they in this? So we need a national dialogue. That does not stop at us politicians.
Yeah,
we are speaking about dialogue.
Why aren't you enlisting their counsel and support?
No. It was frustrated. I'll tell you, the NRM pulled out. He said there's a problem if they see me associating with him. But there came a problem even when the NRM saw those that were associating with us in that process and where it was leading.
The question that many of us don't want to answer, I see Muizi falling in the same trap. The tendency by an average, ordinary opposition MP is also to cover up our own weaknesses and then use the excesses of the state. After this election that is stolen, the military that is going to continue harassing you, we must also find a solution. And for me, the solution begins, even before you think of Museveni, there must be a discussion amongst ourselves. We have also not been honest to each other before you speak about Museveni. We will need to have a national meeting of all. I saw people in South Sudan when they were fighting Bashir. They were also fighting each other. We had meetings here in Uganda and Entebbe. I used to cover them as a journalist. Not meeting about Bashir, but meetings to bring these forces together. And you can see as soon as Bashir falls, they are fighting. they went back and picked their old
but actually, Honorable,
so for me,
on that very note,
yes.
Towards, at the onset of the recent elections, there were efforts for you to talk to each other. I think you even signed a memorandum.
We signed a memorandum with the ANT. The two of us reached out to NOP. It didn't materialize.
Why?
We will need to revisit that process.
Why?
Why? Because when you're speaking to colleagues, you don't want to come on TV and then say the why on TV. There are reasons, we know them. I think we will need to revisit that. We will need to speak to each other.
But it also illustrates the bad blood that exists.
Of course, the elbowing continues, but we will need to stop it. Otherwise, Museveni will sit at his stool there and he will see us elbowing each other and he will be happy.
For me, let's not use internal contradictions.
My disagreement with the colleagues in opposition is to criticize Museveni and use Museveni's excesses to explain away our own weaknesses. We will need to sit down. In fact, for me, before this dialogue of Adonai,
no, it's not mine. It's
I am using
the religious council.
I am using it because you are the one who is in the government, who is here, not that you are. So we will need to have that discussion. We had disagreed on many things, including the approach. I remember the whole discussion in FDs whether elections work or they don't work. There are those who said they work. So that will need to happen first.
Would you ever sit with Nandala for national dialogue?
In life, you will sit with everybody. People who were abusing Museveni yesterday, they are now key in his government. I keep teasing them that the thing you're saying about Museveni has he solved them.
Well, you are winding
so
up
you
your
may have
I
an
take up.
I told you here. I saw. I saw one.
Some you're eating into his
I'm
time.
sorry. I saw one of the people saying that by Besigye being kidnapped from Kenya, he was trying to recreate himself, and then they meet in Ruzira. So we are all victims. So we just have to speak to each other.
No. I think let's not trivialize this. You'll never stop having internal contradictions. You'll never stop having internal rifts within parties, even across board. Even when we are all on the opposition, we disagree on principle on a few things, but we all agree that there are national problems that we all agree are problems facing this country.
Yeah, but if you're not coalescing, then there is a problem.
I don't believe we are at such a level where we cannot talk.
But
we have talked here before elections, within the country, within elections, here and beyond. He knows for a fact. And we have agreed on several issues. The only problem came in electoral politics. The challenge came with positions. Whenever issues of which constituency should be taken by who came in, then it was all lost. Actually, the only sober people were us who are not hungry to be leaders. Actually, the spoiler was elections. But this country is beyond elections. The problems that we have are not in electoral cycles. And the mistake we make, that most of the dialogue, you realize, comes towards elections. Then, where you are sitting to discuss national issues facing all of us, then people start negotiating on positions and constituencies.
Well, you want to come in?
If I may, what killed the iPod, similarly, is for leaders negotiating positions.
And money.
First positions. That is how the UPC was swallowed, through iPod. That is how DP was compromised, through iPod. These are the big questions, not internal problems per se.
The big bottleneck is about trust.
Yes. I think trust within the opposition is no trust. Trust between parties, I think the big
trust towards the
government,
the other party.
Yes. And once that can only be worked on by neutral people. I think the Elders Forum was a good innovation, and the Interreligious Council. And I think Dr. Gunda and others are thrashing out modalities of a dialogue with the Interreligious Council. I think we need to entrust. You'll never get this from our society. You'll never get completely people who are new to 100, but people who are respected, like him and others, to really lead this process. But also, I think there will always be a government in power.
Do you
in
feel,
one stage.
Do you feel Uganda's image on the global scene is being tarnished by Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi in exile, making appearances on TVs?
No. I think with, and you do a comparative study, Uganda in the context of the region. I keep on emphasizing that. Post-elections, there's elections in many countries. I think there is stability. You can call it a facade, you can call it, but there is stability. The government is running. Uganda is playing its regional, role. You have seen the big infrastructure deals we are doing with Kenya. You have seen our
the opposition challenger is on the run.
He's not on the run.
And you feel you're comfortable.
He's not on the run. He says he is on a break and is coming back. And look here, he's of course meeting his supporters. He's trying to, of course, discredit the government. I mean, look at the talking points he was having in Washington. Soldiers at my house, no longer there. And he confirmed leaders are being released, and I think the issues are here. The issues are here. However much you go to Washington, and look, you go to Washington and visit members of Congress and officials of the State Department, and there are no photos. What does that tell you? They don't want to get involved in internal affairs of Uganda.
He was at Capitol Hill.
Yeah, but with the building? Did you see him meeting Congress? Did you see him meeting congressmen and women? I didn't see the picture. Maybe they are internal confidential NUP documents.
So you want to see pictures?
Yeah.
What more do you want to prove?
In the era of social media, his publicity team, I can guarantee you, if he had met the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, it would be on the headlines here. If he had met senior people in the State Department who were willing, I think lobbying has, the point I'm making, lobbying has its limits, especially when you are trying to recreate a situation that is not on the ground. These people have embassies here. They know what is going on.
So is Kyagulanyi painting a true picture of what the country looks like?
He's painting a picture from his perspective.
It's a representation of what the country is, that you can be a presidential candidate who cannot campaign freely, that you can be a presidential candidate whose home can be surrounded, wife abused, the whole house put upside down, a presidential candidate who is not secure, especially against a CDF, if we are to go about his utterances. You cannot take that lightly.
Honorable Semuju, how much do you have as the opposition? How much void do you have to fill with Besigye incarcerated and Kyagulanyi in exile?
You mean the two are the opposition in Uganda?
Well, they are the vanguards of the opposition.
First, the ordinary supporters associate with these leaders sometimes more than the institutions. I agree with you partly. But those of us who are not in prison and are not in exile, we will need to play our part and do it pretty fast. There are things that in Uganda, when I joined politics 2011, things that were happening that are no longer happening, but we will need to continue testing. Because when I joined, it was easy to go and organize a rally, speak to people and go home. Today, they can't allow you to organize a rally. Or if they allow you, if you are going to meet people of Karere, the rally will be in Bombo. So there are things that have changed. But for us to So that space we need to fight collectively, we need to fight for it. Go and address it, rather have a program, see how much disruption will happen to it. But after election, of course, the way they went, people are demoralized, they win, they are cheated. We will need to restore the confidence of our own leaders first before you ask them to go and do some work. So yes, there is work, because when you go to the university, there are people who will automatically fall.
But do you see this on the cards of the opposition?
We are having meetings. We just finished the retreat of PFF at BSJ's residence. I am told the colleagues also had a retreat. Some of the things we do, we may want to do them away from the media. But it's not that we are at home sleeping. Are we doing enough? No, we're not doing enough.
Yeah, but with the apparent acrimony in the opposition, this bad blood.
We will push each other to ensure that we do. I have told you that in life, even if you have had problems last week, you will want to forge forward. And for me, one of the things I have said, I want to avoid spending much of my time on the negative things that have happened and identify the positive ones such that we can move forward. So we will have meetings with the people, whether we like them or not. And that's what I keep telling colleagues in opposition, that one day you will come and take over government. You're not going to chase NRM from Uganda. And you have to behave like Mandela did. They need to feel safe in your hands. And you can demonstrate that by the way you conduct yourself. So there are also people in NRM. I remember in the last parliament, there are people in NRM who are positive that we had started speaking to, even visiting them. We went to visit Tamaranda, who was NRM in Mpigi. At my residence, I think there is a woman MP from Fort Porto. They all came, such Kuba and others. So that interaction is ongoing. We will intensify it, because it's not only us who want a peaceful transfer of power. Many of the people, and Museveni knows it, that they don't go to him because they think he's the greatest leader who must rule until he dies. But at least now he controls the resources. So he knows that it is resources that are pulling people towards him. So we need to do a lot of talking to ourselves even before we speak to Adonia. And that I can assure you we are going to be doing. The results of these meetings that we are holding, you will see very soon.
As FDC, I would like to tell our viewers that we're now switching to Afro Mobile, and thank you very much for everyone who has that app, that beautiful app that keeps tabs on things as they transpire. Well,